video, I'll be showing how to assemble my 3D printed Dune house. This is about what it should look like by the end, except it'll be up on these legs. So there are a few main pieces that we'll be assembling. First, there's the roof, which is printed in 3 pieces because of its size. It's connected with these pieces here that can be inserted and then glued. So let's start with that so that it's ready and the glue has set by the time we have to put the roof on. So we'll use super glue, just put a couple drops on each piece. Now that the roof is done, let's assemble the legs, which will be going into the house after. So we can put this aside and start with the legs. For these, we have screws, which will act as linear actuators. The screws are controlled by these motors, and the motors spin so the legs can go up and down, and that either pushes the house up or down. And they can fit into the house like so. They go right here in these holes, and then there's a motor in here that will push them up and down. So let's just screw these in so that we can actually assemble the house. For that, I've set up this motor here with a 5-volt power supply. And now this leg has been screwed in, so we have that. Now we got the next one. And there we have it. So now all 8 legs are assembled and they're ready to be assembled in the house. So now let's glue together the different modules of the house. They have these inserts, and along with those, I'm going to super glue it. Okay, now they're all done. So we have these 4 pods ready and the roof will go on top. But first, we need to put the legs in with the motors. So for that, I'm just going to put it up on this box. So I'm just going to unscrew each one a little bit and then insert it in the bottom. And then we just need enough screws sticking out so that the motor can actually go into it. Because there's these pegs the motor goes onto, and we need to be able to put the motor tip into the screw before it goes on the peg, because then there's a little bit less wiggle room to do that. So that's why I'm unscrewing it a bit, and then I'm just gonna push it in to the screw. There we have it. And once that's done, then the motor slides really easily onto these little pegs. And to keep it secure, we have these little fasteners with 2 screws each that can just be screwed in. Okay, and now that motor is quite secure. So we just have to do that for all 8 of the motors, and then we'll have the house on stilts. And that's why we have this box here, is so that it's really easy to just slide these legs. Okay, now we have the assembled Dune house, and you can see there's 2 motors in each of the pods with legs. Now, right now, not all of the legs are at the same height just because of the way we screwed them in. So let's get the power supply back and adjust the leg height. I'm putting the power supply to just 3.5 volts, and then that will allow us to move the motors up and down really slowly. So I'm going to just plug this in and then touch the motor ends and then watch how it moves. So right now I'm lifting all of the legs up until the motor just stops. So that's basically the limit of how high the legs can go, or how low the Dune house can go. So I'm just going to do that with all the motors until it hits that point. Now we have all pods at the same height, and we can begin the next step, which involves the roof. Just going to put that aside and move back here. We now need to look at the underside of the roof and glue on these connectors here, and we also have to look at the greenhouse roof too. And basically these connectors allow the roof to just snap in like this with the connectors into the pods. Now it all comes together. So let's try and put the roof onto the house. Let's put all the wires in. Start with the greenhouse roof. So it should just pop in like so. There, that's a perfect fit. And there we have it. That is the assembled Dune house. The next thing to do now will be to integrate all the electronics. So there's an Arduino board and then 4 of these motor drivers, as well as a battery, and then that hooks up to all this, and an IR remote sensor so that we can control it for the demo. First, we need to do some testing with the infrared sensor and the Arduino. We need to find which buttons of the remote correspond to what codes it sends. We can use this program to do it. Basically, whenever the remote sends a code, it will print that to the serial monitor. We can later use these codes in our program so that each button triggers a different block of code. Having this done, we'll assemble all the electronics. The Arduino goes in the center pod, powered by the 7.4 volt battery through the VIN pin. Each extremity consists of an H-bridge motor driver connected to the 2 motors in the pod. Each driver gets power from the 7.4 volt battery and is controlled through 4 wires connected to the Arduino as digital outputs. The last step is to test for faulty connections and correct the code so that the up and down buttons on the remote actually translate to the same up or down motion. There's a 50-50 shot of getting the code right the first time, since upward motion is one wire on high and the other on low, and downwards motion is the opposite. I guess I got lucky because 5 out of 8 motors worked the first time.